Every Trek fan knows Pike's tragic fate, that burns in the beeping chair. But his sacrifice wasn't the end of his story. We're breaking the silence of Talos IV to ask the question, is Strange New Worlds secretly laying the groundwork for restoring Pike without breaking canon? Stick around to find out. Hi everyone, it's David from Sci-Finatics, and today we're diving into the tragic fate of Captain Christopher Pike. We're going to explore the chain of events that makes his horrific accident in 2266 a non-negotiable for the entire timeline, from the original series episode The Menagerie to the fixed points established in Strange New Worlds. We'll critique Starfleet's apparent failure to adequately support their hero as a person with disability in the 23rd century. Then we'll reveal our 5 most plausible theories, all based on existing Star Trek technology that could potentially restore Pike's body or improve his quality of life after his sacrifice has been fulfilled. So let's crack into it. To start off, let's touch on 4 key milestone episodes which set the trajectory that sees Captain Pike end up in the beeping chair, and more importantly, why that fate is a non-negotiable for the entire Star Trek timeline. Our story begins with a foundational original series 2-parter, The Menagerie, which takes place in 2 time periods. Firstly, it established Pike's initial encounter back in 2254 with the telepathic Talosians of Talos IV, who trapped a younger Pike in the original unaired pilot episode The Cage. They created illusions to tempt him to become a mate for the beautiful Vina, who could transform into any woman Pike desired, and she's also the planet's sole human survivor of a crash some years earlier, who in reality was permanently disfigured herself. Secondly, we look back over these past events from 2266 perspective, where an older, severely disfigured Pike, who's confined to a life support chair, is secretly being taken back to the now out of bounds Talos IV by an apparently mutinous Mr. Spock. All of this, of course, plays out on the Enterprise, while a court-martial's going on in the background. This final act ensures Pike can live the rest of his life in a permanent, comforting Talosian illusion together with Vina. It creates the fixed destination for his story, but leaves a blank canvas of what happens after he arrives. But let's take a look back at how the Menagerie episode came to be. Since original Pike actor Jeffrey Hunter declined to return, they invented the radiation accident as the reason Pike couldn't play himself. Actor Sean Kenny was hired to play the grievously injured Pike in the iconic beeping chair. Kenny also played Lieutenant DePaul in the original series episodes Arena and A Taste of Armageddon. Now, the second key milestone episode is If Memory Serves from Discovery Season 2. The main job of this episode was to provide a deep emotional justification for the end of the Menagerie. By showing us Pike and Vina's enduring bond, Discovery established that their original meeting was a profound connection, not just an alien experiment. Pike seems to regret leaving her on Talos IV, and this powerful acknowledged love makes his future accident even more tragic, but it makes Spock's later actions a pure act of compassion. He isn't just saving a captain, he's returning his friend to the one woman still living who can make him happy, which provides context around the emotional why behind Spock's mutiny. The third key milestone, and arguably the most important, is Discovery's Through the Valley of the Shadows. While at the Klingon monastery on Borith to acquire a time crystal, Pike is forced to look upon his own destiny, the moment he is paralysed and severely injured after a radiation leak exposed him to delta rays while rescuing cadets from a training vessel, leaving him confined to a life support wheelchair operated merely by his brainwaves. He's explicitly told by Tenevek, the Klingon timekeeper and the guardian of the crystals, that taking the crystal will seal this agonising fate, while leaving it behind will allow him to pursue a different life. After an agonising reflection, Pike chooses the crystal ultimately. This is the moment his suffering becomes the highest form of heroism. He chooses his destiny, declaring he won't abandon the things that make him who he is. His accident is now a fixed point dictated by his own moral will. The final decisive milestone comes from the Strange New Worlds episode A Quality of Mercy. Pike is shown a terrifying alternative timeline by an older future Captain Pike where he successfully avoided his accident. However, in this future, his diplomatic style, applied to the same aggressive Romulan threat that Kirk faced in the Balance of Terror episode back in 2266, is disastrously misinterpreted as weakness, sparking an all-out war between the Romulan Star Empire and the Federation, ultimately costing millions of lives. Most crucially, his salvation places Spock in the chair instead to be grievously wounded in his place, preventing Spock's vital future diplomatic work, which ultimately would have led to the Romulan-Vulcan unification. This episode provides the final definitive justification. Pike's sacrifice is necessary to ensure that the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. It permanently closes the door on any theory that involves him avoiding the accident, forcing our solutions to happen only after the tragedy occurs to Pike. Now we've established that the beeping chair is a fixed point, Pike must essentially sacrifice his body. But Strange New Worlds added one final crucial perspective in the Season 3 finale episode new life and civilizations that changes how we view his final years. In this episode, Pike's partner Captain Marie Patel, who becomes the Beholder, essentially a powerful being who ultimately transforms into a statue-like eternal sentinel whose purpose is to guard the universe against the evil Vesda, uses her unique abilities to open up the fabric of space and time to give them both a vision of a full life together. Pike lives well into his old age, he marries Patel, raises a daughter, and crucially avoids the horrific Delta Ray accident. This is a profound spiritual gift, a complete life lived, almost like Captain Picard experience in the Inner Light. The main difference being Picard got a flute at the end of it, yet Pike didn't even get the Chef Pike embossed apron at the end of the experience. Bit of a letdown there. When Pike snapped back to reality, he carries the clear, vivid memories of this entire complete life. This memory doesn't change the tragic fate he accepted, with the accident still ahead of him in his future, but it gives him a sense of profound peace and fulfillment. A beautiful, fully realised memory of love and family to sustain him during the years leading up to his inevitable accident. So we've established that Pike's fate is sealed. But is there technology that could potentially restore Pike post-accident that we've already seen perhaps in Star Trek Discovery or Strange New Worlds, for example? But first, let's address the elephant in the room. Starfleet's solution and treatment of Pike after the accident, for example. Look at Pike in the beeping chair. He's left with absolutely no autonomy, a body that can only signal yes or no, and he's placed in a room without sliding doors that he can open himself. He's left with zero dignity. By comparison, his future looks so bleak that even Hector Salamanca, a former drug lord in Breaking Bad, who's in a wheelchair and communicates by ringing a small bell, seems to have a better time of it than Pike. This lack of compassion and innovation is really quite jarring, but we have to understand it's a product of 1960s thinking around disability that manifested itself in the Menagerie episode. If we compare this with our own world today, we empower people with disabilities to live rich, autonomous lives. Great minds like Stephen Hawking used advanced speech synthesizers and eye gaze technology to communicate complex theories. And the late Christopher Reeve, paralysed from the neck down, used computer systems to control his environment and remain a powerful public figure. These technologies give individuals dignity, respect, and the ability to actively contribute to society. Starfleet in the 23rd century seemingly offers none of this, forcing Pike into isolation, just staring aimlessly out of one of the windows on Starbase 11. But wait, Starfleet has miraculous technology. Why didn't they use the transporter to reconstruct Pike? Every time Pike beamed onto a ship or down to a starbase before the accident, essentially a full, healthy template of his body was stored in the pattern buffer. Could they simply have beamed up a severely disfigured Pike and used this template to reconstitute him back to his former healthy self when he's ultimately rematerialised? Canon is a bit murky here, but the simple answer is, if they could have, they would have. Transporters are often shown to have medical limitations or ethical safeguards that prevent them from being used for total reconstruction, and perhaps to avoid complex legal issues or unethical practices. The 23rd century Starfleet, as shown, had no cure, at least as far as we knew. Before we look at advanced solutions though, we have to remember the cure Pike already rejected. In the Strange New Worlds episode Lift Us Up Where Suffering Cannot Reach, his former flame Allura offers him access to the superior Magellan medical technology, essentially the same technology that eliminates all disease and injuries on their planet. Pike, however, objects to this life-saving offer because the Magellan utopia and technology supporting it is built on the sacrifice of a child. He chooses Federation morality over personal salvation. So Pike is fixed in this fate. He rejected the easiest cure, and his own Starfleet abandoned him to his suffering. This means any successful cure must be morally sound and must happen after the accident has fulfilled its purpose. Shifting now to advanced alien aid, the Strange New Worlds episode Charades introduced the Cacovians. These energy-based lifeforms possess the power to manipulate reality and matter at a fundamental level. They're able to completely reverse severe damage to a biological organism, performing a total non-invasive repair. While this is an alien technology and not a Starfleet solution, it proves a power capable of healing Pike exists in his era of the galaxy. Finally, the most powerful human-developed technology for restoration remains out of reach for Pike in the 23rd century. The Golem technology, pioneered by Dr. Alton Sung and seen used to restore Admiral Picard in the 24th century, is the ultimate fix. It allows a consciousness to be transferred into a new, healthy, synthetic organic body, completely bypassing a destroyed biological one. While this technology wasn't developed until well over a century later, it shows us that a morally clean, complete physical restoration will follow in time. But how Pike's ultimate fate is portrayed on screen is inextricably tied to how Strange New Worlds concludes. Will the series end with a neat handover of the Enterprise to Jim Kirk, with many of our favourite crew members going on their separate ways? or perhaps a more poetic ending, like the final moments of The Undiscovered Country, with Kirk ordering the helm to head for the second star to the right and then on till morning. These warm endings are designed to help the audience avoid the painful side of Pike's final accident. However, the series has a major challenge. How do they end Pike's journey without negating the heroic choice he made in the episode Through the Valley of the Shadows? If Strange New Worlds completely broke with canon and allowed Pike to avoid the accident, such as an alternative timeline or alternative reality style approach, many fans would see this as a letdown. It would essentially cheat or invalidate the immense sacrifice he made to stay on the path of his destiny. Strange New Worlds has done a reasonable job at following canon while at times strategically bending it to expand the story. So let's presume the series will honour canon. Pike's accident occurs, which we see in the lead up to the Strange New Worlds finale, and this has him reach his ultimate destination in the beeping chair. But what happens after that point? It's here in the long years of his confinement on Talos IV that the door opens. We could revisit Talos IV, perhaps in a Strange New Worlds version of the Menagerie Redux, showing the events of this episode from a different perspective than we saw in the original series, or perhaps with a new twist. It would be great to see Melissa George reprise her role as Vina once again from the Discovery episode if memory serves. Pike has completed his sacrifice, and his fixed point has been set. The question then becomes, can the canonical tools that Strange New World has given us allow him to regain his life after his destiny is fulfilled? So let's have a bit of fun and explore 5 plausible theories that offer Captain Pike either complete physical restoration or a profound, more fulfilling new life. Theory number 1, the Batel enhancement, Vina's new face. Our first theory is the most canon-conforming one, suggesting the Talosians incorporate Marie Batel's appearance and a shared future life into Vina to create Pike's final perfect illusion. It acknowledges that Pike's body is irrevocably broken, but his mind can still be saved and fulfilled. This solution utilises the powerful telepathic matrix of the Talosians and the memories Pike carries from the Strange New Worlds episode New Life and Civilizations. When Pike is finally delivered back to Talos IV, his mind is filled with 2 powerful yet incomplete loves. Vina, a companion he shared a unique experience with in the past, and Marie Batel, his long-term love interest, with whom he later experienced a full alternative timeline. To give Pike the perfect reward for his sacrifice, the Talosians would use the deep, genuine emotional history and the physical appearance of Batel to enhance Vina's illusionary form. They could effectively integrate Batel's look and the experiences he formed with her, the marriage, the daughter, the old age, allowing Pike to live out the rest of his life with the culmination of all of his love within a permanent, perfect reality. This is incredibly poetic and canonically safe. The tragic act occurs, and the solution is deeply character-focused, using only established Talosian powers for the emotional payoff. The main drawback is that it's fundamentally not a physical cure, which may feel like a bittersweet final note for a character we've grown to admire, as it still leaves his physical body forever confined to the chair. Theory number 2. The Trelane intervention, a Q's atonement. So let's bring in the heavy guns for our second theory, the omnipotent Q continuum. Specifically, we look to Trelane, the mischievous Q confirmed to have already crossed paths with Spock in Strange New Worlds episode Wedding Bell Blues, when Spock carries out his mutiny in the Menagerie and beams the grievously injured Pike down to Talos IV. Trelane, now fully confirmed as an impulsive member of the Q continuum, sees an opportunity for an act of atonement. Feeling a sense of immature cosmic guilt over manipulating Spock's emotions during the Chapel crisis, Trelane covertly reaches in just after Spock beams away. He uses his reality-bending powers to instantly repair Pike's body and neural damage, restoring the hero without the Federation even knowing. The pro here is that it provides a complete physical cure with 0 risk of temporal contamination. Outside of Talos IV, everyone still thinks that Pike's crippled, preserving his fixed point and Spock's heroic mutiny. However, the con remains that this is a massive deus ex machina, which potentially cheapens Pike's own heroism by having a godlike being do the heavy lifting, even if that being is a child acting on a whim. Theory number 3. The Kerkovian Gambit, mutiny for a cure. Our third theory is the Mbenga Chapel Kerkovian Gambit, which might occur in the crucial gap between the original series and the motion picture. Driven by guilt and loyalty to their former captain, an older Dr. Mbenga and Nurse Chapel abandon hopeless Federation research and plan to use the reality-bending power of the Kerkovians encountered in charades. They formulate a covert mission to violate the Federation's Talos IV ban and retrieve the crippled Pike, arguing to the Talosians that a physically restored life is a superior act of compassion to providing a mere fantasy. Upon success, they present Pike to the reluctant Kakovians, who agree to use their powers to completely reverse the Delta radiation damage, thus honouring Pike's original sacrifice. The pro here is that the solution is earned and internal to the Enterprise family, using canonical alien tech for a complete cure. The major con, however, is the massive canonical and ethical risk, as it requires the crew to commit mutiny by breaching the Talos IV ban and necessitates convincing omnipotent aliens to intervene. Theory number 4, the Starfleet Academy return, augmentation and acceptance. Our fourth theory focuses not on a full cure, but on a technological augmentation that allows Pike a meaningful life post-sacrifice. This mission occurs in the years potentially after the original series again, where Starfleet finally develops advanced neural interface and integration technology. This tech dramatically improves Pike's communication and limited motor control beyond the original beeping chair. His return is ethically supported by the idea that his sacrifice ensured his survival to fulfill a later vital destiny. Using a canonical exception to the Talos IV ban, the Federation retrieves Pike, allowing the fully augmented living legend to return as a lecturer or trainer at Starfleet Academy. The pro here is twofold. It respects Pike's initial sacrifice while granting him a fulfilling, useful life, and perhaps more importantly, it provides a crucial thematic update. By offering him advanced autonomy and returning him to active service, this solution retroactively addresses the limited 1960s era view of disability presented in the original series, providing a far more dignified and modern perspective on living with a disability in the 23rd century. The con is that it requires a significant off-screen technological leap to justify the improvement in his condition. Theory number 5, the ultimate debt. A 32nd century retrieval. The last and most ambitious theory is the 32nd century retrieval, which sees Michael Burnham, now a high-ranking officer who never forgets the debt she owes Pike, utilising the stable state-of-the-art temporal technology and the legacy sphere data available to her in the 32nd century, conducting a covert mission back to the 23rd century with Dr. Culper. They retrieve Pike just after he's delivered to Talos IV, arguing to the Temporal Integrity Commission that his restoration is a necessary cleanup, the ultimate payment of a debt to a man whose sacrifice secured their entire timeline. They then use future tech like advanced bioregeneration or golem transfer for a full physical restoration. Pro here is the clean physical cure using established future tech. The con, however, is that this is the most complex theory, requiring the 32nd century Federation to massively bend the spirit of the temporal accords and risk severe temporal contamination, even with the best safeguards in place. The physical restoration theories face the significant ethical hurdle of Vina's fate. Since Vina can't leave Talos IV without reverting to her broken physical state, any solution for Pike must necessarily include a cure for Vina as well. His profound compassion makes it entirely out of character for him to abandon her, even if he receives a physical upgrade in the process. Beyond Pike's moral obligation, there's also the critical issue of Talosian consent. Though they accepted that humans abhor captivity, the Talosians still derive value from the rich minds of both Pike and Vina and may resist giving up the two individuals who provide such a unique sustenance and entertainment for them. Finally, Vina's potential natural passing or death is also a key factor for later stage rescues. If she were gone, Pike's moral constraint would be lessened, but it raises another possibility of whether the Talosians would simply maintain a perpetual illusion of her, perhaps integrated with Patel's features for Pike's sake, just as they kept the illusion of Pike running for Vina after he left Talos IV back in 2254. In the end, Captain Pike's journey has been elevated from a tragic accident into one of Starfleet's greatest moral sacrifices. Strange New Worlds has definitively established the fixed point of his destiny, but in doing so, it's also given us the canonical tools to envision his restoration, whether his final reward is a poetic, permanent illusion via a Patel-Vina enhancement, a complete cure from a whimsical Q's intervention, or a technological upgrade allowing him to return as an augmented lecturer. The possibility now exists within canon to grant this hero not just peace, but a second fulfilling life. Pike must enter the chair to save the galaxy, but he doesn't have to stay there forever. His life of service, sacrifice, and character makes him worthy of a second chance. Well folks, that concludes our deep dive into the fate and potential future of Captain Pike. I hope you enjoyed exploring these theories. Do you have your own idea on how Pike could be restored? Or do you believe he must remain in that chair forever? And where do you think the series will finally end in its finale? Let's get the conversation started in the comments below. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. Until next time, folks, live long and prosper, and bye for now.